It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. My lucky day. Don't need a pot of gold.
Good morning, everybody. Today is September 7th, and I want to welcome you to episode 36 of Coffee and Cloud Native. My name is Adrian Goins. Every night, I and my army of bots scour the internet for news and content related to Kubernetes and Cloud Native, and every day you'll find me here to share the bits that I find interesting. This is a curated list of content. I go through around 200 submissions every night, and I select only a handful for the next day's show. And these are the tools and the products and the things and the stuff that I myself would use, that I might use, that I know people use. I don't know. They're just things that I think are cool and that I think have a place in the ecosystem. But I can't use them all, so hopefully you can use some of them and you can come back and tell me how they are so we can live vicariously through one another's success. If you're watching now or in the future, please click the thumbs up button on the video so the YouTube algorithm shares it with other people. Subscribe to the channel. Don't subscribe to the channel. I don't know. Everybody's like, smash the like button and subscribe. I like seeing people subscribe to the channel, but really I'm just happy that you're here to watch the video. Even if you're watching it in the future, that's the most important thing. But subscribe anyway, because, and come join the chat. Those who join live, we're in this chat window over here, and I'd love to see more of y'all in here. In fact, let's go take a look and see who's there. We have Lisa, good morning. Ariel, Michael Lundquist. Michael pointed out that today is Labor Day, and so some of you actually have the day off. Technically, I also have the day off because I take U.S. holidays, even though I don't live in the United States. It's just easier for work. Same way that I work U.S. Eastern hours. In fact, Chile switches to daylight saving time on a completely different schedule from everybody else, and it decided to do that on Saturday. And the way that it does it, I don't like the way that it does it, but, well, that's a whole other story. So they switched on Saturday, and my home automation system controls a big portion of the alarm to wake me up in the morning, because it, brings lights up over 10 minutes, and it starts music, and it does all of this stuff, right? Because why have you a home automation system if it's not going to do cool stuff like that? The alarm module in the home automation system is totally broken. So when we switched, we went from UTC-4 to UTC-3. So we're an hour closer to GMT. And therefore, when I put in the time to wake up, the time difference between GMT, it should be shorter, right? That's just math. Well, for some reason, it's bigger. So even though I'm entering time that's an hour earlier, it's telling me it's an hour later. And first, the alarm went off at 4:30 this morning. Then it went off at 5:30 this morning, and then I reset it again for the time that I figured was probably 6:30, and it didn't go off at all. And at 7:46, I know the show's at 7:30, but now it's at 8:30, which is still very confusing. So at 7:46, my dog started barking, and that's what woke me up, and I looked at the clock, and I was like, I almost slept through the show. So thank you, Chile, for doing daylight saving time at a time when nobody else does it, and thank you, whoever wrote that alarm system module, because now I have to go fix it. So that's what I have planned for today. What are you doing on your holiday? In a rant with Adrian Goins. Casimirix, Anthony, good morning. Wojtek and Mose, hello. Steve Jaguar, hello. And, I'm trying to scroll the chat. That's the bottom of the chat. All right. Elisa will continue to tell you about just how awesome time changed in Chile is, or she can tell you about the year that they decided not to do it. But for the rest of us, let's get started. David McKay. We had him on the show as Raw Code. Well, he is Raw Code. We had he had an article that he wrote about QuestDB that we had on the show in episode 27. He's recently started live streaming. He works for Packet, and he has a pretty strong internet presence already, but he just started doing live streams. He's doing them in a podcast format. And when I wrote this last night, I wanted to bring to your attention that he has 2 upcoming streams. The first is IPv6 Kubernetes clusters. Well, he has 3 upcoming streams, but we're going to talk about 2 of them. IPv6 Kubernetes clusters, and as you can see, that's going on right now. So don't leave the chat to go. Don't leave my video to go watch his, but watch it later. When I forgot that I had this window open, and I came in, and you figure I've been up for 13 minutes. I just made coffee. I come in, my computer's not even on. It's not woken. My computer ain't woke yet, and it just starts talking, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, am I live streaming? What's going on? His live stream started in the window that I had open. So I went and joined it for a little while, and while I was setting up for my own, it's about IPv6 Kubernetes clusters. IPv6 is a topic that's very close to my heart. Well, whatever. So it's the seccomp operator in Kubernetes is the one he's doing on Wednesday. But let's talk about IPv6. I built prod IPv6 networks when I had my Poland office, and we were doing VPNs, we were doing IPv6. I had my own IPv6 address space attached to my routers out at Equinix, who now owns Packet. Interesting little universe synchronicity. Haha, like symmetry, synology, sin to not awake. And IPv6 is super, super cool. And it saddens me that more network providers have not rolled this out yet. They just keep kicking the IPv4 address space exhaustion can down the road. Aaron keeps sending out, or Aaron, somebody keeps sending out notices about how, oh, we've only got 16 network blocks left. We're gonna run out soon. And then they go and they raise the rates and a bunch of people give them up and they get a bunch back. But eventually we are going to run out. And if you can get IPv6 from your provider, do it. Start figuring it out. Reroute or rerun your whole internal network on IPv6. Hurricane Electric used to have little training courses. They might still have it. You can get IPv6 tunnel broker connections. And I realized as I was putting this together last night that I now have a static public IPv4 IP on my new internet connection, which means I can get a tunnel broker connection. So I can actually get some IPv6 again. Yay! Because you can't get it in Chile. Nary a single provider in Chile will do any IPv6. And I was gonna say what sucks about that, but maybe it doesn't really suck. What hurts, what saddens me, what breaks my little heart, is that eventually they're gonna need to do it, and then it's gonna be rolled out really quickly and incorrectly, and it's gonna break. And there's a saying that my dad used to use that I really like using, and it's one of those sayings that you can just kind of say to yourself, but you can never say to another person. But it says, lack of planning on your part does not make for an emergency on my part. And that's how I think Chile's going to end up with IPv6. It's just going to be a disaster, and it's going to be wide open, and nobody understands firewalls and whatever. They were They were just starting to talk about how you can build Kubernetes clusters that are IPv6 only, and how suddenly all your pod IPs are public and the benefits of doing so. I'm going to go back and watch the replay of this afterwards, and I encourage you to go and watch it as well. Check out the seccomp one on Wednesday. The Tuesday one is about Docker and PHP, which I'm sure for people who are into Docker and PHP, that's also going to be interesting, but it's just not my bag of rocks. I don't know. I'm not going to watch it. So, raw code. Next. Coffee. Polyaxon. Next, Adrian goes and checks and makes sure that we have IPv6 with Metal LB. I don't actually know who asked that. That came from the chat. Yeah, so Michael says, I wonder how IPv6 works with Metal LB. I wonder as well. I've not done anything IPv6 with Kubernetes at all. So we can figure it out. We can make videos about it. We can share with the world. How many people do we have here today? I got 12. It's a few less than Friday. Friday was Giveaway Friday. We got 53 or something like that. It's a holiday today. Plus it's early. But the thing that I want to see is, so I wanted to see if Nightbot woke up. Nightbot failed to do the giveaway on Friday, and it looks like he's still not awake. Okay. You're going to see a test stream come out from me probably later on today. It has to be public for Nightbot to join it. I'll just have a standby glitch window in there. Don't bother joining it. I just need to do that so that I can test Nightbot so we can use him for giveaways. We will be doing giveaways. We'll be doing giveaways again on Friday. Every Friday this month, I'll be giving away a copy of Brett Fisher's Kubernetes Mastery course. And then next month, we'll decide what else to give away. But I plan to continue doing giveaways every Friday because I want to give you guys stuff that you can use and learn. If you have ideas of other courses, classes, things off of Udemy that are interesting, because I know basic Kubernetes training probably isn't interesting to those of you who already have your CKA or who've been doing Kubernetes stuff. But look around out there. Should we have machine learning courses? Should we have development courses? Send me suggestions over Twitter of the kind of stuff that you would like to see me give away, the stuff that you would want to win. So, Nightbot, fail. We'll get him working again. In the meantime, we have Polyaxon has released 1.8. They're a machine learning platform for Kubernetes. And, well, they released 1.8. So it's got some basic updates. There's an update to the CLI that includes things like saving results to CSV format and a new eager mode execution, which you can't see in this window because it's super tiny. Can I blow this up? Does that make it any bigger? Oh yeah, now it's like, instead of being super tiny, it's just mostly tiny. So there's a new eager mode execution that I can't even read without my glasses on, that does parallel processing. You can save results out as a CSV file now. That's pretty important. I've been working with Dataiku. I've been working with them. Their DSS solution is great, but I've exhausted what's available at the free tier. I wrote this model to do predictions of stuff related to the quality of questions being asked in Slack so that we can extract from a Slack stream questions that would be relevant for blog content or video content or something like that. It works great, but you can't use the API nodes in Dataiku unless you pay for their super expensive corporate tier, which I don't even know what that costs because they won't write me back. I had one of their sales guys reach out to me over email and say, hey, what are you using the platform for? And I was like, hey, I'm just using it to figure out machine learning. And he's like, hey, you're not a person I'm going to make a bunch of money off of, so I'm not going to write to you anymore. That's not what he said, but he just never wrote back. That's what I think he said. So I look for other things. I don't know if Polyaxon will satisfy my needs, but it runs in Kubernetes and it's open source, and for me, that's great. So they have other features in their latest update. They did some UI changes. They've got some new core engine feature changes that are leading up to upcoming features, events, hooks, and actions. And some updates for how they're handling log data. So if you're using Polyaxon, great. If not, we'll move on. It's one of the ones that I'm going to check out. Oh, here they have an article about using it with... So Polyaxon is cool because it supports all sorts of different machine learning platforms or solutions. I don't know what the right word is. You can use Jupyter with it. You can use Streamlit. You can use TensorFlow. You can use all sorts of stuff with it. And so they have an article that they just released 2 days ago as well. 2 days ago? 4 days ago? About using it with Streamlit. Next, if you've ever used Kind or K3S, or I guess those are really the only two for really doing development of Kubernetes within Docker. If you're doing it on a Mac or a Windows machine, you will run into issues with actually accessing the container resources, the pods, the services, the ingresses, the anythings at all, because of the way that Windows and Mac isolate the VM in which the whole Docker system runs from your actual machine. If you're doing this on Linux, it doesn't matter. You can just talk to it because you can just talk to it. But if you're doing it on Mac or Windows, Docker runs in a VM. A lot of people don't realize that when they just start. They're like, no, I run Docker on Mac. You're like, no, actually, there's a virtual machine that you don't see that they pretend isn't there. So this guy wrote an article on how to access an ingress with Kind, and this will also work with K3S, but we'll talk about Kind because it's his article. You can't hit the stuff you want to talk to. You have to punch ports through, but those ports would have to be greater than 1024, so you're going to end up doing things like routing 8080 to 80, and for me, I don't like that for a development experience because it's not... I want my development environment to perfectly replicate my production environment. If my production environment is not on port 8080, I'm not going to add :8080 to everything that I do, because when it goes to production, I don't have the confidence that there's not some redirect or some URL being thrown somewhere that's going to have an 8080 in it that we have to remove. And so I want it to be holistic, identical. I don't know. I just want it. He has an interesting solution that is, it's one of those solutions that's really easy and really obvious. And when you read it, you're like, oh yeah, that's really smart. And that's to just, if you're running kind and you have an ingress resource in there and you just want to test it, or if what you're building is like an API or something that throws back JSON responses and you don't need a whole graphical UI, then you can just use a Docker container that has curl in it, like where curl is the actual entry point. So you can even alias that to the curl command, where curl becomes docker run --rm curl, and then pass all of the rest of the flags in as the command portion. And that way curl is just a Docker container and you don't even know it. It just takes an extra moment to start up and do what you need it to do. But that way that curl container bridges between your local environment and the Docker environment where your containers are actually running. And in his example, you can do it with an ingress. If you are doing this with K3s, there is a, so if you're doing it with, sorry, I keep saying K3s, K3D. Excuse me, more coffee. If you're doing it with K3D, there's a service LB pod that, or fake host node that you can hit and you can point this to. So then once you have that, you just add your URL into Etsy hosts as the actual container pod host node IP, and it'll just work. Logs.io. Logs come up a lot. Like, what do you log? Where do you send it? How do you parse it? It's easy to send logs somewhere, but then parsing them is a nightmare. So then, do you just send them? Is it too much noise? Do you just not go through it? How do you make those decisions? And there are tools like Zebrium, which are great for things like this. We've had Zebrium on the show before, so Zebrium does AI parsing of logs and detects incidents. But where do you start? You start by understanding what you're looking at. So does your container output to standard out or standard error? If so, great, you just need to capture those. If not, how do you get that? For example, I run cfile, and cfile isn't really designed to run inside of containers, so it just writes to log folders. Well, I could run a sidecar, and I could extract those and stream them, just basically cat them, and now I can capture, because the sidecar container has access to the same file system, I can just cat the pod output from that container, and that'll work. I could also then use the sidecar to do log rotation, so this also works. This article from logs.io goes into those kinds of scenarios and talks about what do you need to get, where do you get it, how can you get it, what do you do with it once you have it, and it talks about not just container log output, but also output from the control plane, output from etcd, output from Kubernetes events or Kubernetes audit logs. Talks about var log containers on the nodes and how unless there's a log rotation scheme in place, when a container or pod restarts, those logs actually stay there. So you can consume all the disk space on your node and then your node crashes, and that's fun. It then continues with what do you do when you have these logs. This is a really long article. I'm going to scroll down here. So it talks about sending them to FluentD. It talks about using an ELK stack, which is Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana, and technically also includes Beats, although Beats isn't fit in there. We have an ELBK stack. And then there's also the EFK stack, which is Elasticsearch, FluentD, and Kibana, and Beats. So FKB as a viable solution. Google Stack Driver is another viable solution. And then remember who's writing this, logs.io. What do you suppose logs.io does? Well, by the time you get to the bottom of this really useful article with really juicy information about what you can do, they just casually mention Oh yeah, we also have a fully managed solution that you can use to log to Kubernetes, log from Kubernetes, if you want. I love articles like this. This is the best kind of content. Logs.io are experts in a particular problem domain. They have expertise. And they've written this article on how you can solve a problem for which they are experts without using their solution. You could also use their solution, but that's not the purpose of the article. The purpose of the article is to give you information that you can use to solve a problem. No strings attached. That's a good company. That's a company that I would want to work with because they have confidence in their solution. They're so confident in their solution that they're like, yeah, come check it out. And if you want to use it, that's cool. If you don't, that's cool too. You could build your own Elasticsearch stack, or you could build your own relationship with Stackdriver, or you could do your own log rotation, or you can, whatever. Here are the tools, open source, free, knock yourself out, have a good time. Let us know if you want some help. I like content like that. I reject a lot of content. There's a whole article series. They're up to like part 17 or 12 or something like that about Kubernetes security, and they have good content, except that every 4 paragraphs, it's we'll just say company X. How does company X solve this problem? And then there's a paragraph about how their paid solution will solve it. And then there's more information about, like, if you encounter such and such security problem in Kubernetes, how does company X solve the problem? Well, what if I don't want to use the problem solving solution of company X? What if I just want to solve it myself? Well, now I know that there is a problem, but they haven't told me how to solve it. And so every time their articles come up, they don't make it in the show. And that's a shame, because they probably have great solutions. Such a snob. Such a snob. I just want to give you guys content that you can use without having to go spend a bunch of money. Rant. In 1.19, the fine folks at Kubernetes made a bunch of changes to the Kubernetes API server that allows it to send back warning response headers in the API server output. This is game-changing. So it can send back basically in every response stream, there can be warning information, and the client can consume that if they want, or if they don't care, it's just in a header and it gets ignored. So they're using this already for things like deprecation warnings. They surface those. Hang on a second. So deprecation warnings, if you're using a deprecated API, metrics associated with deprecation warnings. So they actually surface those as a trackable metric in Prometheus. So you can see the numbers of requests that are coming in for deprecated APIs. Then they've added an extension to audit events for requests to deprecated APIs that includes an annotation that shows who made the request. So now you can not just see how many requests are coming in and get the warnings about what APIs are deprecated that are being triggered but are being requested, but who made those requests, so you can go and figure out which of the other components in your Kubernetes environment are actually at risk of having, stuff in the future not work. So just with this one change, by including this warning response header, they've enabled all of this intelligence about your cluster. Another one is that admission webhooks. So there's audit annotations, custom resource definitions. So if you have custom resources, you can return information about what things in your own custom resource are deprecated and where people should go to make the correct requests. Admission webhooks can return warning messages about things that maybe they admitted but that they wouldn't, or that somebody should consider. Their example is funny, like, memory requests greater than 1 gigabyte do not work on Fridays. Okay, great. Like, you probably need to tell people that. I don't know why, but if that's the case. Then they've also enabled a strict mode in the kubectl client for 1.19 where warnings can be treated as errors. So if you have a policy that says that your stuff going through CI should not use a deprecated API, you can use this to actually fail those requests so that you can force people to go and fix their stuff. Because what do we know about people? They won't fix anything until it's absolutely necessary for them to do so, and which is fine. That's totally fine. We have so many things on our list. We have to prioritize stuff. So this is a way for you to elevate the priority and say, you know what, this is important. We're just not going to let you publish your stuff until you fix it. And suddenly it moves up in the list and stuff gets fixed. I like this, and I wanted to share that with you. Continuing on in the Kubernetes space of stuff is Kubernetes dashboard, which got updated. So say what you say, whether you love the Kubernetes dashboard or not, you can't deny that it's useful. And they've updated it with support for more resources. So now you've got network policy, role bindings, and cluster role bindings. And they made some other updates, including privilege restrictions, or the container image was actually being built as root. And even if you ran it as a non-root user, the fact that the image itself was built to run as root was causing validation failures in systems where you can't run container images that could run as root. So they fixed that. So now it runs as a special non-root user. And yeah, I don't use the Kubernetes dashboard because I use something else, Rancher. But everybody who comes to the show knows that I work for Rancher, right? But this isn't a Rancher show. But still, this Kubernetes dashboard, open source, very prevalent. If you need it, if you use it, well, they've added more stuff to it, and that's great. 856. We're going to jump to the tool of the day. Now we're going to do one more, and then we're going to jump to the tool of the day. Who should I pick? Do we have Volterra? Do we have Cyclops? Terraform-operator. Okay, we're going to do Terraform-operator. Could be Ingress AWS controller. Some of these got punted from Friday. Terraform-operator. This, I don't use Terraform either. So this is something where if you use this, if you check it out, you're going to have to come back and tell me if it's cool. This enables the execution of Terraform operations from Kubernetes CRDs. So I asked somebody about this, somebody who uses Terraform, and his response was something along the lines of, oh my gosh, can I create clusters by having Argo apply a CRD to another cluster? I don't know, maybe. It looks like you possibly can. Take a look at this, and it looks to me like you can just apply Terraform plans as a CRD, and your Kubernetes cluster will go forth and deploy other things with Terraform. There's always a risk when I put something on the show that I don't directly use, that I'll just say stuff that I think is intelligent and that actually is not. But I looked at their examples and I see like SSH keys in secrets. So this genuinely looks like using Kubernetes as the Terraform infrastructure, apply some CRDs, which means that you can now define your Terraform plans and define what happens as Kubernetes resources. There's this loop of stuff that leads me to believe that in the future, Kubernetes is just going to be the operating system. Like the operating system is going to be abstracted, and everything that we do to interface with everything, with any type of automation, with any type of system where we want to communicate with it, is just done via Kubernetes. I see stuff go by where people are still writing blog articles about, are containers the right choice for you? There's a huge opportunity out there. We have to go out and find people who are not yet on board with this and help them get on board with it. Because if they don't, their future is at risk as far as companies go, not people. We're not going to go through and gather up all of the people who don't use Kubernetes and send them off to some desert island somewhere. But companies who have applications or environments or anything that touches the internet need to understand containers and Kubernetes. They just need to. I don't think it's even a competition anymore. And now, tool of the day. Tool of the day. Somebody said I should do tool of the day jingle like the My Lucky Day jingle. I'm still thinking that Lady Gaga telephone Hello, Kubernetes. I can't put the lyrics together on it. Today's tool of the day is the Kube Job Notifier. This is pretty simple, but seems kind of a little bit useful. Do you run jobs in your Kubernetes clusters? Would you like to know that they completed? Or more important, would you like to know that they didn't? This will send notifications to Slack, which means it'll also send to Mattermost, which is what I use, or it'll also send to Datadog. It's simple, it does the job, but it's not configurable. That's the only thing about it. I don't write Go code either. It seems like there's so much that I don't do. I wonder why I even have this show. I don't even use Kubernetes. Just kidding. I don't write Go. So I looked at this and I could not find anything about how to configure it so that it only sends notifications on a certain type. Like I would like to see notifications on job failures. I don't really care about notifications that a job was started and that a job completed successfully. And the problem with sending notifications that I don't care about is that it becomes noise and then it becomes ignored. So if I look at a solution and I'm like, oh, well, I'll just send the success notifications to a channel that I never look at. Why send them at all? Probably that's just like a, hey, pull a config map, and that's an if-then statement. But since I don't write Go, I don't know. But Utah Chaos, if you are watching this, please make that configurable. If it was configurable, I would totally use this because I have jobs that run and that I just kind of ignore. And every so often I go through it and I'm like, why are all of those things red? Crap. We should go and fix that. And that's a terrible way to manage a Kubernetes resource. So with that, we are done for the day. I'm going to go spend the rest of my holiday. In fact, I think I'm going to finish this. I'm going to go make breakfast, which I only do breakfast on weekends, but this is still a weekend, right? And I'm not going to work today. I'm not even going to work on my own stuff. I spent the weekend building a new website and doing finances because I didn't do it in all of August. So I'm like, I'll pay all my bills, I'll balance my checkbook, which I don't have a checkbook. I use GNU Cash because I'm a nerd. And so I'm thinking, oh yeah, what can I do today? Well, I didn't finish processing all of my expense reports for the last 4 months, so I could do that. But you know what? I'm not. I'm going to go play Borderlands. Rock on, right? If you liked what you saw today, give the video a thumbs up, please, and subscribe to the channel. I'm here every day that there's something to talk about. There's always something new to talk about. I will have all the links and the timestamps up in the video description in about a half an hour. If you follow me on Twitter, you will get a notification when that happens. I was just thinking maybe I would go back to bed, but I'm not actually tired. I got a lot of sleep. If you have something that you'd like to consider, I'm definitely going to have more coffee. If you have something that you would like me to consider for the show, hit me up and let me know. My contact details are in the video description, or you can tweet with the CNC. Oh, we need CNCN gang signs. How do you do N? We should learn that in sign language. I can do like... You can see each other at KubeCon. We can like flash CNCN gang signs. So if you tweet with CNCN hashtag, I will pick it up and I'll take a look at your stuff and hopefully we can get it on the show. If I mentioned a tool that you use, please tell me in the comments. I love hearing about your experiences with all of these things. And yeah, it's like 3 minutes after 9 now. I'm super confused about time, so I'm gonna go. I will see you in the next show. Keep learning. Thanks for joining me today. I'm gonna go have more coffee. We'll see you later.
Don't need